Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video I'd like to discuss how Conservative MPs, egged on by the Tory client media, are alleging potentially criminal levels of corruption. But not against their rivals as part of a dirty election campaign, but against their own leadership in a baffling act of self-destruction. The claims themselves seem very doubtful, as they don't really make sense, almost as if Nadine Dorries is behind them. But they've got enough of the ring of plausibility to those who don't really understand the systems to heap even more pressure on Rishi Sunak and divert attention from whatever strategy he's got left for the election. This really does feel like there's a section of the Conservative Party who are determined to see their own side fail really badly. Of course, I've seen this same behaviour, but I didn't necessarily expect to see it from literally the most important and most successful political party really in history. So first of all, what are the allegations? Well, according to an article in the Sunday Telegraph today, some Conservative backbenchers are upset that members of the 1922 committee appear to be acting as stooges for Rishi Sunak. Now, the article relays accusations that Sunak must be buying their loyalty with the promise of honours or seats in the House of Lords. Now, as I suggested, I don't think these claims are remotely credible. Let me explain why. First of all, the entire basis of the claim is the suggestion that they should be doing something differently. But what? The article talks about how the 1922 committee, for those who don't know, by the way, just to explain, the 1922 committee represents backbench Tory MPs. So you have like what you call front bench and backbench MPs in a party. The front bench are, in the Conservatives' case, the ministers, the members of the government. So they're not obviously allowed to criticise the leadership or anything like that to any great degree because ministerial responsibility. So the backbenchers are the ones who, they're still members of the party. They're still supposed to toe the party line, but they've got a little bit more freedom. So they have this 1922 committee which exists to represent them. So the article is talking about how the 1922 committee has been instrumental on giving former leaders the tap on the shoulder to get gone. Theresa May, Boris Johnson, Liz Truss. So the suggestion is, well, because they haven't done this with Rishi Sunak, they must be batting for him. And why would they do that? Oh, he must be prepared to give them something in return. The article makes mention of the fact several are stepping down as MPs and so may be looking for Sunak to do them some favours. And at first sight, presented with that argument, you may go, oh, yeah, okay. Yeah, because the 1922 committee did tell three leaders who were on course to lose the election to go, yeah, Rishi Sunak's on course to lose the election, so why aren't they doing it with him? Dodgy. Only, just as with all the nonsense that extremists come out with, it doesn't actually stand up to closer scrutiny. For example, when the 1922 committee discreetly told Theresa May, Boris Johnson and Liz Truss that it was time to go, they were acting on the instructions of large numbers of Conservative MPs, like a majority of them, because there was no other way to make it happen, at least not tidily, because all three, for a couple of different reasons, were immune to a confidence vote from MPs. That is not true now. If Conservative MPs want to trigger a confidence vote in Rishi Sunak, it only takes 53 of them to write a letter to the chair of the 1922, Sir Graham Brady, and it will happen. So when it comes to Rishi Sunak, the 1922 committee's only role is in collecting letters which have been submitted and relaying the feelings of backbenchers to the leadership, as they have been doing. In fact, when Rishi Sunak met with the full 1922 committee of backbench MPs, he was given a very clear show of support. Now, this doesn't mean a lot because the same thing happened with previous leaders who were shown the door shortly afterwards. But on the available evidence, as badly as Sunak is managing things, he has the support of his parliamentary party. He's been given shows of public support. And because he's not immune to a confidence vote, we know that fewer than 53 Tory MPs want him gone out of about 360. Because if even just 53 wanted him gone, they'd have submitted their letter, we'd now have a confidence vote. Now, this may change, of course, the day after the local elections being the next obvious flashpoint, but in the here and now, for right or for wrong, Tory MPs are backing Sunak. But these accusations will be very self-destructive. Like, there's no evidence for the claims in the article. It's a fairly detailed article. It goes on for a while. And the sentiment which keeps coming up from the accusers is, well, we don't think the 1922 committee should be behaving like this, so the fact that they are must mean that they're being bribed. But it's a nonsense. What's actually happened is there is a small faction which thinks it's right, and so assumes the majority must also agree with them. But a majority is enough to bring Sunak down, so the fact that he's not been brought down must be, it can't be because the majority don't agree with him, because that would be a mad thing. So it must be there's a conspiracy. It's a line of convoluted thinking I've seen many times. And you can tell who these accusers are without their names being mentioned, because they complain about the way the 1922 committee, they say, prevented Boris Johnson coming back after Liz Truss. Only this is not true. It is true the 1922 committee came up with a change in the way the leadership contest would be run in order to stop it being dragged out. And that made it harder for Boris Johnson to be able to take part. However, bizarrely, it was baffling to me, Boris Johnson did get the nominations needed to put it to a vote of members. So Boris Johnson could absolutely have been on the ballot, and that ballot would have gone to the members. Boris Johnson, Rishi Sunak, who do you want? 1922 committee didn't stop that. Boris Johnson could have come back if he had member support, which he may well have done, but he backed out. Now, it was reported at the time he'd been warned that taking the leadership again, but failing, would significantly reduce his earning potential on the speech circuit. You know, but the rules of the contest, which were changed after Truss temporarily still allowed Johnson to go on the ballot. He backed out because he realised he didn't have parliamentary support still, even after Truss. He knew he'd be trying to lead a very disunited party, and he decided that wasn't going to do him any good. But although these accusations are utterly deluded, they have the power to cause not just Sunak, but themselves immense problems in the future. Because the situation for the Tories is they will either stick with Sunak until the election or they won't. The 1922 committee won't be making that decision. The party systems are fully operational for the wider parliamentary party to take matters into their own hands. You know, if Sunak has still not faced a confidence vote by the end of May, you'd have to assume he's safe. After the election, Sunak may not care a great deal about the election. If he wins his own seat, he'll probably resign as leader. Well, he'll certainly resign as leader, I think. And then in short order, probably as an MP, and bugger off into the sunset to seek out other lucrative jobs. But those who are agitating for a change of direction and leadership within the party, they're only making their task more difficult. Because it's quite likely that after the election, an extremist takes over the leadership. But because in their haste to achieve this earlier than is sensible, they are creating huge levels of mistrust about the structure of the party itself. They're just setting up that future leadership to be built on sand. Because they're making the argument that if you don't like the leadership in the current direction, then you can undermine it. So they're now attacking the nature of the 1922 committee itself. The equivalent structure really doesn't exist in any other party. Labour don't have their own version. I often find it amusing that Tory backbenchers have their own union, because that's what it is. It's a union, but Labour backbenchers don't. But what are the rebels seeking to do here? Dissolve the 1922 committee itself? Perhaps they think that will work to their good. If it's destroyed amid accusations of corruption, then the power to set rules for leadership contests will have to go somewhere else. And that somewhere else is going to have to be a body more aligned with the party leadership at the time, as it is with Labour, which sounds like a great way to prevent a future nutter being deposed so easily. Only they're not really thinking it through. First of all, backbenchers don't like instability. Like, if they act to remove a leader, it's not because they don't like that leader. It's because the writing is on the wall. They're going to lose the election. It's really clear. In fact, if anything, backbenchers tend to be a little bit too cautious in these matters at times. So by removing the ability for backbenchers to change a clearly unsuitable leader tidily, they leave them having to do so untidily or being resigned to being on a course to losing the election really disastrously. And then, of course, when their project fails and they end up with someone who is still useless but from a different tribe, which will inevitably happen, they lose the power to remove them easily as well. Because right now it is easy. If a majority of Tory MPs want Sunak to go, he's gone. He's absolutely gone. He's gone by the end of the week. And it's the 1922 committee who will make it happen discreetly with the minimum of fuss. But there isn't a majority of Tory MPs who want this. In fact, not even 15% of them want it, because 15% is all it takes to force the vote. So it's just another case of the Conservative Party tearing itself apart, during a crucial campaign for local and mayoral elections. You can understand the Tory client media and Tory MPs pushing obvious fabrications about their rivals. You know, the claims about Angela Rayner's house, which the Mail on Sunday is going on about today, which, if there were anything in it, HMRC would be taking an interest. Dan Needle, the tax lawyer, has already come out saying the Daily Mail's arguments are all spurious. Or the paper mile scheme, which the Tories claim Sadiq Khan is going to push ahead with, despite the fact he's explicitly ruled it out. Oh, but interestingly, Boris Johnson supported the idea, just as he did with ULEZ and the expansion of ULEZ. And it's this sort of Tory sleaze and false campaigning. Yeah, that makes sense. It shouldn't be legal, but it is, and so you expect the Tories to take full advantage. But attacking their own side, particularly during an election campaign, actually accusing their own leader of a criminal level of corruption, as well as, you know, many other Tory MPs as well who'd have to be in on it. I mean, Labour's main task now for this election year is to persuade a certain type of voter. The voter they now need to sort of placate are Conservative voters. They don't like Labour, they're not going to vote for Labour, right? But they really don't want to support the hot mess in government right now. Labour's fear is that these voters, come the election, decide it's that as messy as this current Conservative government is, it's still better than a scary Labour government somehow. They hold their nose and vote Tory. So Labour are trying to be as unscary as possible to these people. They would rather these Conservatives voters find the Conservative government even less palatable than Labour. And this infighting's making that more likely. But then that suits some of these people as well. They know that if the Tories suffer a catastrophic loss of seats, and I mean really catastrophic, it means that the far-right MPs will represent a hefty proportion of the Tory party after the election. They'll be in a much stronger position to drive the direction of the party. Assuming the party even survives the next decade, of course. But there we are. Those are my thoughts. If you enjoyed the video, please subscribe for further content and click the like button. You can also sign up for memberships if you'd like to support the channel further. Thanks for watching, and until next time, I'll see you later.